that, Roger? Just
yeah, and I'm not sure how many of you were at the county presentation in Minto. Okay, because what I did is I took that presentation and I thought I'd just show you the whole thing again. No, I'm just kidding. I stripped out everything except Grafton, and I can just go through that. It would take about 45 minutes. Does that sound okay? So, and so it's not going to have all the background, but what else, you know, basically this whole effort is what else could you do locally in Grafton to make it a better place to live, work, and play. And so that's what pretty much this whole effort was. And, you know, like can we increase population, increase local investment, finding ways they can be more successful, and then including entrepreneurial opportunities. So that's really been this whole effort has been about. And of course, I looked at the populations and the screen is right over them, but it's been dropping a little bit. And we found that in all 40, well, not all 42, in about 38 of them, the only ones that were growing were Grand Forks and the communities right around Grand Forks, like Thompson. And so, yeah, okay, there we go. And I did these things about, this is really important, and this is the big deal that's driving a lot of this. For the first time in America, jobs are going where the talent is or where the talent wants to be. So what we need to do in Grafton is how do we be the place where talent wants to be, and then the jobs will come here. And if you can't get the talent here, the jobs are going to go somewhere where they can get the talent. And that's the trouble, you know, like Marvin Window, I'm not saying they're not leaving or anything, but I think they have more than 100 openings or something. And if they can't get the talent, that's scary, because pretty soon they're going to say, well, where can I get the talent? We're going to go there. And so that's where quality of life is leading everything now. And so I always tell everybody, community development is now leading economic development and tourism development. And so there you go. And I think Grafton has it in spades. And I keep showing you pictures of what the Parks Department is doing, because I think do a great job. And then, of course, the focus of all elected officials is what can we do to improve the quality of life for our citizens, whether it's fixing roads, whether it's putting in sewers, whether it's putting in other parks, all of those things that you do as a city are to do that. And so this is how I started all, and I'll just get, you know, right into Grafton. And I thought I'd run through this because I talked about it even last night at dinner, but number 7 of those is what younger families are looking for. And number 1, and this is in order. So here, and the reason I'm showing this again, I would love it if Grafton, the city of Grafton's website, if it says, I want to live here, invest here, retire here, you know, it had like a little list, and then you start focusing on these things. So if you said, here's the top 10 reasons you should move to Grafton, and you say, we are one of the safest communities. I don't know what the stats here are, but you know, I don't think Grafton seems ultra safe to me. You know, I see kids out biking around and everything, and I don't see them having to be supervised and everything through that. Sorry about that. Let me even get that over here. And so, you know, so that was number 1. And that's the reason I'm showing these, is just so that they can see, you know, there you go. You know, use photos like this. This is I can't remember, that might have been a stock photo, but getting photos of kids on bikes, getting things that just show safety for kids. So there's a lot of that. Number 2 is they want good educational system. I went on niche.com, and if it scrolls down on niche.com, which is where they rate schools, Grafton gets a B, which is good. If you get a C or a D, then people might look around. But we scrolled down their list in order. This is all of North Dakota. Of course, there's Minot, Lincoln, and Devil's Lake and everything. But if you keep going down, and these are all Bs now. So there's Grafton right there. So that's good news. So that was number 2 on the list. Number 3, they want to feel like they belong. And so they feel like, well, if I move there, am I going to be accepted? Will people appreciate that I live there? Will they accept us if we open a small business or do something new? And so they want to feel welcoming. And so whenever we see signs that, besides, welcome to Grafton, we need it beyond that, like on our websites, we love having young families here, something like that. So they feel like, okay, they're going to accept us. And so that was really important. And part of that is community pride. And I didn't take out, like, this is Park River. I didn't have time last night. We were out pretty late. But even in some town, they want to see positive change. Now that's in Conway. But here, like the wine, what is it going to be?
It's the wine house.
Wine house. Like, so when I saw the sign for the wine house, it says, yes, there's positive change coming. See what I mean? So I think that's really, really good. So they want to physically see positive change. And I think that's great. And the reason I showed these in Conway is because they're actually burning down old houses, which to them would be positive change. Or we want to see new construction. And that's really, there you go. There's your sign for the wine house. And I thought, yes, that shows positive change, that you're making it better. And then number 5 was life after 6. And we're going to talk about this because this is where plazas come in. This is, the Armory activity. And most of these people want life after 6. They want it in your downtown. It doesn't mean every retail shop has to be open, but they want life after 6 to be in a central gathering place. And that's probably the big thing we're going to talk about today. And so downtown is really, really important. Number 6 on this, they want great recreation. And usually within 45 minutes. I know from here it's like an hour out to Pembina Gorge, but within that time, there's lots of recreation around you. It's an area that North Dakota struggles a little bit because you don't have much in the way of public lands compared to other states. But it's also about ball fields and things like that. So it's not just trails and all those things. But I got to tell you, even out at Listico Park, you could walk for miles around all the park and around the loops, let alone the 1.5-mile trail that Jane, my wife, and I have walked probably 30 times. And so that's great. And then you've got the dams and all those other things. So I'll get to your golf course. This is Listico, of course. And even this, I thought this was so awesome that the Parks Department has kayaks and canoes and right there at the river with a dock. I think those are all quality of life things that people are looking for. Okay, now why did that quit on me? Okay. There we go. Let's try this again. Quality health care they're looking for. And I think you have that in spades in Grafton. I think the family clinic, the hospital is all top notch. And then we want walking, biking trails, pathways, school transportation, which you have. Yeah, go ahead, Jane.
Yeah, there might be another participant trying to.
Oh, okay. And then this is that trail that's out there at Listico Park. And I think photos like this need to be on the website with like people walking down the trail. You can just the backs of them. You don't even have to show their faces and get model releases. You could just show a couple holding hands or kids biking around it or whatever. It's mainly a walking trail, but I think that would be really, really helpful. But these are the kinds of photography that you need to have that will, why is this fighting me? Okay. I don't know what happened there. Yeah, it's for some. And then number 9 on their list was housing available, affordability, and quality. You had a few houses for sale in Grafton, but this was a real challenge everywhere it went, is trying to find where can I even live. And so that's something, I'm surprised there aren't housing developments being built in places like this. Maybe people say, oh, it's a declining population, why would we build new houses? Well, you're not going to get a new population until you give them places to live. And that's very important. And it's starter homes, move ups, nice neighborhoods, which Grafton has tons of neighborhoods, and we didn't see any bad ones. You have a mobile home park that's a little rough, but you have every kind that you could see. And even in some places, they're taking commercial buildings and turning them into live workspace. And then finally, number 10 was jobs. Jobs was not number 1. So if you're a place they want to live, they will come here and they'll say, now, where can I get a job? Or how can I create a way to make a living? And that is the big thing that is flipped from even 10 years ago, where we went wherever the jobs were. So now the jobs are following the workers. And so that's why showing quality of life, showing people playing golf, showing people out on the river. And every website, Cavalier was one of the few that had a visual first website. And so when I went through this is Grafton City website. It looks like 1990. No offense, but it just is dated. And when young people see dated websites, they're going to think the city is dated. And you should have one photo for every 50 words. And all you have is a picture of your gateway sign. There's nothing that sells quality of life. So me for the city, I always say every city website should look like a tourism website. Because when people decide, when they narrow their focus, so Marvin said they're busing people in because they're not living in Grafton. They have buses out there. And we're going, how do we get them to live in Grafton? Well, we need to show that this is a superior quality of life. And they're going to go to city websites and just glance at it. And what they see is a whole bunch of text in a very dated format. And so that's something I would concentrate on. And that's where all photographs like this, and then the photographs we take in Grafton, we also need to get to the Rendezvous region and to state tourism to get them on their websites. And we just took these over the last few weekends. That was so awesome out there. And so all photographs like this, and it might be somebody playing disc golf. It might be all the gardens out there. Remember, we did these gardens in late September when they were, starting to lose their color and everything. But I mean, it's just stunning. Even things like this, if you showed the little train coming around the corner, with all the kids on it, that's what people remember. And then finally on that, no other state has anything on you. So when people always say, why would you move to, people that live in North Dakota, when you tell people out of the state where you live, I'm sure they go, oh, I'm sorry. And I go, why would people be apologetic about North Dakota? I mean, and so that's the reason that it just drives me crazy. And so here we go. We're talking about quality of life issues. This was our first impression. There is the gateway sign. It's kind of covered by our Zoom friends over there, but we saw that it was fine. We had a sense of arrival. I have to say there's a close up of the sign over on the right there. But I got to say that we didn't have any bad first impressions at all when we came into Grafton from any direction. From if you're coming in from 29 up 81 or coming in off of, 17 out there. And when we saw Marvin windows, we went, whoa, we've got those in our house. I had no idea this was where they were probably manufactured. And of course, we did see they're $17 to $21 an hour. On the flip side of that, it's $2,500. Now, here was our first negative, is when we came in, you could see the sign there on the right. It has Coca-Cola up at the top. It's a blown out sign. There should be abatement ordinances to get rid of stuff like that. So you go to the sign, you go to whoever owns that sign, and you say, we're going to give you 90 days to get rid of it. And if you don't get rid of it, we're going to get rid of it, and and you'll pay the cost. But these are the kinds of things. So we see Welcome to Grafton, we see Marvin Windows, we start coming into town, we see that, then we see that, then we see that, then we see that, and our opinion starts going down. These temporary signs should only be allowed for 2 weeks at a time for special deals and promotion up to 4 times a year. There should actually be ordinances that restrict the use of those so they don't end up just being out there year round, and so because it just creates sign clutter and it reduces the value. So those are those little things that just say, we don't mind you doing that during sales and special promotions. Or even hiring, there's $250 to $1,000 signing bonus. And so it's just, these should be temporarily used, that they're temporary signs. And so these are all, by the way, these are just suggestions. There's no recommendations here because there may be things you're already working on with these. I love this, spoiler country, got room to grow. And it's been a while, it's been 2012. So people will notice that. They'll say, wow, it's been 10 years. But overall, I think it's great. Walker County, we're proud of our schools. I think it's great. So no problem there. And for Jake, he's probably liking that G there for Green Bay, right? So instead of Grafton, but similar logo. This is just coming in the other colors. I thought all your gateways were really nice. I'm not a big not real fond of all the concrete and gray and beige. I wish the word Grafton was like in blue or red or yellow, something that was just had a little more punch to it, but overall good. I wouldn't go out and change them. And of course we saw every kind of house. Yeah, like from this to this, and then we like that. And what happens is people will judge you by what they see. I mean, like this little house, I thought was just cute, really darling. I mean, we saw just about every type of house, which was good. The neighborhoods were great. I mean, I think this is down by the high school. Just beautiful, beautiful homes. So you have every range there, which is great. And nothing negative at all about any of your neighborhoods that we saw. We tried to drive down every single street. And so I thought that was really important. And of course, we saw the courthouse right next door to where we're at this morning. And this is how we found this building. It was by accident. So when we were driving around, we said, oh, there's where they're at. And so it's great. The school was great. Look at that. That's late September. Even posting pictures like that and says, by the way, don't tell us we're frozen tundra 10 months of the year. This was late September, and I thought the school was fabulous. And so, that and the Centennial Center, I mean, everything about it we thought was great. And we were there for a JV football game, and which was really fun to watch. It was nice to see the stadium there. It was nice to see a lot of parents there. And we didn't stay for the whole game, but they were leading when we left. And of course, the hospital. These are all things you need to show. So on the website, you should have rotating photos that go in and out, that just show the quality of life. I mean, I love that where dogs bring people. I thought that was awesome. And just so you know why this is important, 85% of millennials own dogs or pets, 85%. RVers, it's close to 80%. So having a dog park is absolutely fantastic. So I think that's a really great addition you did for the city. The disc golf, I mean, that's excellent. But showing these things and actually showing somebody get ready to show a Frisbee is just going to prove to people that are looking to live here what the quality of life is like. I think it's amazing. I just was blown away by it. And if I showed all these, and if you had a family having a picnic there, wow, you just go, wow, this is really beautiful. And so that's what this is all about. And I just think it needs to be more photography of people doing activities, including during the winter, on snowshoes that they rent out there or on cross-country skis. You need to show that the winters can be embraced. We don't hide from them. And I think that's really important. That was the Angel of Hope. This is for people who've lost a child. I mean, you go there and you read it and you see the names and how old some of the children were. It makes you want to cry, but it really connects you to the community. The pool out there looks great. And of course, we we got here after the season. And so those are kind of things. But I love the, corn maze, Morning Star Ranch, on and on. They had llamas out there. And so when I've put programming, Grafton Park's A+. And I'm not sure how many of these events they do, if they do them during Easter and spring break and during the summer. And if anything, I would say you need to do more of them then. And so, and I'm going to get into some more. I mean, all of the games they had out there, they had a couple of food trucks out there. I mean, the whole trail was decorated up. They had the little zip line for kids, which I thought was really cool. I thought that was really fun. Even this, a sandbox full of corn. I mean, they were just having the time of their lives, and that's our office right there. So we got to see that view. And even the Parks Department would come over and would say, we're having music. If it's too loud for you. And I went, no, turn it up. It's awesome. But they're really conscientious about that. So that was kind of the quality of life for Grafton. And then there's the tourism aspect of the Fair Oaks Golf Course looked awesome. You know, I mean, it's beautiful. Probably our big challenge at all the golf courses is there's no signs that say whether it's open for public play, whether it's 9 or 18 holes, whether we have a pro shop, whether we have food. I mean, is there food at the golf course? How would I know? See what I mean? So if they just added to their signage that, hey, look, this is what we have available for you. And I would imagine they're open for public play, and it looks like they have a pro shop. No pro shop, but can you rent cart and clubs? Okay, but don't see what I mean? So those are the kinds of things that we don't know. And so that's where they could improve. But it looks really, really nice. We did try to find historic Elwood. You can see the sign there. And we followed the sign down, and it came down to a dead end, and all we saw was a viewpoint. And so we don't know whether Elwood was a house, a district, a neighborhood. We have no clue what historic Elwood is. But when we got down the dead end road, all we saw was that little wildlife viewing area. So we thought, well, that must be Elwood, you know, and there's nothing else. But then we thought somewhere, and then we picked up a map of Grafton. I don't know if it was a chamber map or what map it was. It showed Elwood in a whole different area of the city. And the map is wrong. This sign just doesn't finish the job. So we said, okay, let's take another stand at it, because there we can see historic Elwood and we see the binoculars. So once again, we drove down there. We're not finding anything. There's no more additional signs. And so we get all the way down there, and we thought maybe this is Elwood, but then it says it's something else. It's got its other name there. And so we're trying to figure out where it is. We see this little bridge. We're not even sure if it's safe to drive over it. It's pretty pitted. And so we said, well, I don't know, maybe it's over there. We saw the river, and then all of a sudden we saw that behind a fence. But if you go there, this is how you're greeted. There's nothing that says, welcome to Elwood, here's when we're open. There's nothing. I would take down, if this is never open to the public, then take down the signs. I mean, it doesn't do any good. I mean, you know, and apparently it's never open to anybody. And if it is, put a sign there or tell us when it is so we can come back. And you need a sign down there that says Elwood is this way. So those are those things that can be frustrating for visitors, because we're talking about tourism now. Out here, the historical, what do you call this? It's a historical park. Heritage Village. So we went out to Heritage Village, and it's got great buildings. I mean, we're driving through there, we're walking around. Everything is locked up. We can't find any signs. There's no interpretive signs. It's just a bunch of buildings with no information. So there's no interpretive signs that say where these came from, or whether it's a replica, whether it's the real thing. I thought it was really cool, the little saddles and the milk cans. But once again, like Jugville Museum, the doors are locked. There's no information about hours, nothing. So we're there for like an hour. This looks like it probably has a merry-go-round in it. And I don't know if they ever opened the doors. I don't know. I mean, there's no information, just zero. And so finally we found a building that says tours by appointment only, and you get 4 phone numbers, not even an area code if we're from out of the area. And so, and by the way, visitors aren't going to call and set up an appointment and come back a week later. You know, and so, and it should say call Jim or Betty or whoever there, you know, because we're not just going to randomly call numbers and try to set up an appointment. But I thought, even if you had interpretive signs out each side of the building that would tell the story, that would, at least it would be, even though we can't go in them, at least it would be, we would learn something. And by the way, when it comes to tourism, if you can get people to spend 2 hours spending doubles, because now we're going to be close to lunch, we're going to be close to dinner, let's get something to eat, let's get something to drink. And the village all by itself could keep going for 2 hours if there was interpretive displays. And so, you know, once again, you know, we thought it would be great if we worked with other historical attractions and actually created a, you know, a rendezvous region history trail, you know, where we could go down to Minto and connect them all, but we'd have to have some consistent hours. I have to tell you, in these 4 counties, we probably saw 40 to 50 historical attractions. The only 2 that were open was at Icelandic State Park and across the street in Cavalier. That was it. All the other ones were locked up. And I don't know if it's COVID. It's probably a combination of COVID and lack of volunteers. And by the way, with historical attractions, the people that run these need to get out of the Memorial Day to Labor Day mindset. Boomers who are most interested in these, their peak months for travel are April, May, September, and October. Boomers want to travel when the crowds aren't there. And so these things, you need to stretch your seasons. I think that's really super important. And then, you know, we saw the archery club, which was great. I think this is something to add on your list of amenities on your website. You know, there was no, by the way, there's no phone number or anybody to call about using it or anything. It's just there. So you have to dig around on the web to figure out how to have access to it. And of course, you saw the curling club. And once again, same thing. There's no hours, there's no days, there's no contact information, no URL, website address. It's there. I think it's a great amenity. I'm not sure how I'd ever use it. And then, of course, marketing to RVers is going to be great. We saw lots of RV parks in the 4 counties, but if we were ever here as a visitor, we go right to Listicle Park. You're centrally located. It's got tons of amenities. And so we would go there in a heartbeat. And then, of course, that's where we're at. I didn't see any other ones. We could stay out at Icelandic during the season, and it's pretty nice, but it doesn't have full hookups like your RV park does. And so I think it's fantastic. And just remember that people that are here as visitors, even in an RV park, they're still spending money. I mean, we've been to Hugo's every week for 4 weeks. You know, we've purchased a tremendous amount of diesel here because we drove 2,400 miles in a month. And so we still spend money here. I mean, getting propane out here on the corner at, so what was it, Simonson? What is it? Yeah. No, not Cenex, the Schumacher's, yeah, Schumacher's. So all of those things for us, yeah, we were shocked that Tractor Supply didn't sell propane because across the country, almost all of them do. But so we did plenty of shopping, but it's more like locals would shop. So it's a little different. And we did eat at almost every restaurant you have. So, and then finally, the last part was about commerce, listing it. And by the way, I talked to Bill over at Parks. He's already listing Listicle Park on Campidium, All Stays, Good Salmon, all that. And he's been emailing him, and I've been giving him more information to get it out there because that's a good revenue source for the parks department. And it's a great place for visitors stay if they're not in a hotel. Places like this were sad to see. We didn't know it was closed for the season or if it was permanently closed. And now we've heard that it's permanently closed, which is too bad. But if it's permanently closed, get rid of this temporary sign. We don't need the temporary sign there. It's probably in the city right away. So you could just say, you know what, pick it up, carry it, put it behind the building if it belongs to whoever owns the building. But what it just says is the last day was Sunday, 11 to 9. Well, what Sunday was that? A year ago? You know, I mean, so it just doesn't, you know, it doesn't serve any purpose. Of course, downtown is where I want to kind of focus. You know, our first impression with town, love the street lighting that the city's put in. I think the street lighting is fine. I think overall there's a good collection of businesses there, but it looks desolate. Excuse me. Number one is everything is brown, beige, and gray. There's no color. There's no real life to it. And there's nothing to soften the, oh, thanks, Don. There's nothing to soften the transition between facade and curbside. Some businesses do a good job, and I'll get to that. But when you drive down it, it just looks like, I mean, it looks like there used to be street trees. They're gone. It just, our first impression was we loved Grafton, but downtown we thought looked desolate, even though there's some really good businesses there. Even Mike over at Frosty Fox, when we first saw Frosty Fox, we didn't know restaurant, lounge, event center. There's no curb appeal. You know, there's no flowers out, there's no benches, there's no anything. And I'm going to show you what you can do. This is a fantastic shop, but look at it. My wife would not go in it. And everybody said, oh my gosh, you're missing the boat, because it doesn't look good. I mean, this needs to be painted. There could be a pot, a bench, a pot right next to it. I mean, and it's really sad because, and here's the big statistic, is 70% of first-time sales comes from curb appeal, 70%. And I mean, over here at Shenanigans, at least they did a pot and they got benches. I'd put in more pots, but so at least they did something. Skin rehab, you have skin rehab?
Yes.
You've done a really good job. I went back, and sorry we didn't show photos of you in this, but she's done a really good job. However, and I'm going to get to a couple things that you could do there. But so some of the shops have done that. But what we need to do is we need to extend it throughout downtown. It needs to be like every 3 feet. And for her that has skin rehab, at least when we drive by and we look down the street, we can see your beautification. You have pumpkins, you've got the flower pots there. So at least we know there's something down that side street that's worth turning for. But it'd be good if it extended all the way out and up and down hill, because in hill, there's nothing to even slow people down. They're just beat trucks are just cruising right through. And so and people are going through downtown and not to downtown. Even the Chamber of Commerce looks pretty drab. Everything's brown and beige. It's like, can we add some color? And once again, no offense, a lot of these are leased buildings. The Chamber does have pots out in front, but then on the side, we just need more of it. Now I'm going to give you some ideas how to do this. This is one I talked about last night when we had dinner over at Frosty Fox, but this is in Fredericksburg, Texas. A local merchant went up and down their main street and said, would you donate money? Like, I want to line up pots just like this. Every 3 feet, we'd have a bench or pot, or a bench like pots on both sides. And somebody gave him $5. The biggest donation was $200. The average donation was about $40. And in their case, they raised about $3,500. You might raise $750. Who knows? You know, their population at the time was about 5,000. Now they're about 12,000. But they're about the size of Grafton. So they went down and they collected money. And then what they did is they went to a wholesale nursery and said, at the end of the season, like this time of year, October, and said, you know what, if you had a pair of pots and one of them's broken, we'll buy the other one. If you have a hairline crack, if there are chips on the top, we don't want them for pennies on the dollar. We'll take everything you got. And our rule was 20 inches opening or bigger. We don't want a bunch of little 6-inch pots. We want 20 inches or bigger. And so then they got them. They've got a flatbed truck. They brought them in from the wholesale nursery, put them on the side street. And then once they were on the side street, they said, merchants, help yourself. And the merchants went out and grabbed them. You can even see right here, these merchants grabbed 3 that look the same. These merchants grabbed 3 or 4. Then these merchants grabbed these. And they started lining them up. That merchant grabbed 2 of those and they lined them up. And then they brought in a load of topsoil, dumped it on a side street and some rock. And then they paid high. So they spent about $1,000 on all the pots. Then we had band, hockey, cheerleaders, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, any youth organization raising money. And then the youth organizations put some gravel in the bottom of them, round gravel, and then cut out a piece of landscape fabric, then fill them full of topsoil. They never had any vandalism because kids protect things they take ownership of. But because it was winter, they just put pinwheels and Christmas decorations and things in them. And then the next spring, and by the way, they paid the youth organizations about $700. So now we're at $1,700. Then in the spring, they planted them all. And that was the other 1,000, or so, the other half. And they even have groupings. There's a few pots left over. They did end up with a few smaller ones. So look at that. The blade sign is the art gallery sign. And look at that grouping of plants. But when you line it up and down the street, people are going to go, whoa, it's going to slow them down. because they're going to take a second look. And there's that quote. There's your statistic right there. 70% of first-time sales, come from curb appeal. And so this is in Neenah, Wisconsin, another town of about 5,000. It's now bigger than that. But in this picture, there's before. And by the way, awnings would be great in downtown too. I mean, for you, awning out there would be absolutely fabulous. If they're not cheap to do, but that's after. So before, after. Just doing that increased their retail sales by 35%. That is the power of beautification. And then, of course, women account for 80% of all spending. And so what do you see? You see the guys sitting in the benches while the women are in shopping. And benches should always be at the facade facing out, just like a front porch. It makes your shop look welcoming. So that's what you need to do right there. And this should be running. There should be 20 benches in downtown Grafton where people can just sit there. They can watch the traffic go by. And it also makes you welcoming. So these are just examples I've been showing everywhere we've been. And so women, they want to feel safe. They want it well lit. They want it well lit. They want it full of life. We want to see people. And I'm going to get to that. But there is why we do that on our front porch. It makes our homes feel welcoming. It's the same for businesses. And so that's really critical. So this is Laverne, Minnesota. I just want to show you some examples that merchants can emulate. And this is things that merchants have to take the lead on, not the city. The city, we believe, is in charge of curbside beautification, street trees, but merchants and property owners should be in charge of facade side beautification. It's a public-private partnership. And so in Laverne, Minnesota, this is a restaurant, but they didn't even have outdoor dining. They actually stacked up the chairs, but at least you could tell they were open and in business. Because like the women's shop here, the Squire shop, we couldn't even tell whether they're actually in business. They have nice window displays, but if we don't see flowers and pots out there, like, is it Amy?
Yes.
Okay, like Amy's place, we know she's in business. It's obvious. See what I mean? But some of the other merchants, it's not obvious. And so this is in front of a retail shop. They actually have hanging window baskets. They get snow in Laverne, Minnesota, but then they have that little rocker. And every night when they close, they put the rocker inside, but the plants, the little window boxes stay there, and notice the blade sign. I mean, these are just examples, and there's their blade signs. And that's another thing that's missing in downtown Grafton, blade signs. And let me get to that. But so you can see down the street, you can say, oh, they're in business. They're in business. You can see a chair, a table, and a chair, and it's not a restaurant. It's just a retail shop. But by doing this, it's so simple. It proves that you're open. It proves that you care. It slows traffic down. And so just doing simple things like this, and this town is smaller than Grafton. And so, I mean, just things like that just make all the difference in the world. This is not rocket sciences. So you're getting blinded by the lights. It's just, the sun is going right there in your eyes. And so, but right here, this business is doing a fairly good job. I would like to see benches between the pots. It just needs to be, we need more of it. And so, I think the coffee shop, Cabin Road, does a really good job. They put umbrellas out there. They have tables and chairs. I think they do a really, really good job. They've got the little planters that has evergreens in them. We love the sun, but like all of these buildings should be, I mean, it looks right out of 1974. That aggregate and stuff. I would just start painting these buildings, get some color in here. And when I did the county thing, I told people I absolutely love that. And there were people in the audience who went, like, really? I think it just adds vibrancy. It adds youth. It just adds fun to downtown Grafton. I just thought, man, I wish there was more color like this. But if you look down that street, there's no signs. There's no blade signs. There's no signs perpendicular to the businesses. And no real curb appeal. But at least there, I mean, the curb appeals put it inside the little doorway there. But I just thought, I love the color. I just love the fact that it's vibrant. And I think there needs to be more of it. It doesn't have to be like that. It could just be other colors. They don't have to be crazy designs or anything. But right across the street, I love what they did with the pole. And this is like a gallery, you know, but we've never seen it open. Yeah, and I don't know, there's no hours, it just says closed. One day it said open, and we went, oh, let's go over there, let's go over there. And the gal came out, locked the door, closed. And it was like, okay. And it was like in the middle of the day. So those are things that are really challenging. You know, the Squire shop, I think their window displays are fine. I would, you know, but it just doesn't have, there's no curb appeal. And so those are things that people need to understand. I mean, maybe it's a case of getting awnings. We've worked in many towns where they put out awnings like that. And I took that in Geneseo, New York. The town is about 2,000 people. And most of the retailers have awnings like that. And they have high wind loads. Awnings add so much character, and they give you shelter from the rain. And so a lot of these awnings, they actually will put a heat bar up there, so when it gets snow, it doesn't tear the awning. Or some of them actually will roll up, and I think I have a picture of one of those. This one does. That's a restaurant there, but they can roll it up if there's high winds, and they can unroll it. So there it is, unrolled. There it is, rolled up right there. So these are things you could do. And by the way, look at that. There's no reason why downtown Grafton couldn't look like that. I'd love to see street trees back downtown, but I don't know why they're gone. It looks like they used to be there and you took them out. Not sure why.
They just keep dying.
Oh, they kept dying. Okay. Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So, but it's still important to do this. But I took this in Durant, Oklahoma, another small town. But the awnings added so much. In their case, you know, I actually said, that looks really good. Those awnings, these look really great. That looks really great. That looks like 1960. Yeah, see what I mean? Those are awful. I'd tear those off and put real awnings on if that's something you want to do. And so, you know, look at that. That's El Dorado, Arkansas. I just think that's fabulous. And so this is something you could do. And sometimes with awnings, what's nice is you can put lights underneath them. And so these are just ideas for you. But just look at the curb appeal, the benches, the pots, everything about these towns. It just makes you want to go there. And so this is all El Dorado, Arkansas. But this is the power of beautification. And here's another one. Is there should be night lighting downtown in the shops. So in the night when this is closed, you can still see inside. It's an invitation to get people to come back during the day when you're open. And this is called the Opera House. This is in Grant, Oklahoma. But they have all these lights in there, and those are on 24/7. They're all LED. And it just helps light it up even when you're closed. You know, look at this. They have, I mean, I called it the red light district, and it's actually really cool, but they had, you know, just these shops are lit up. So even at night, so this is at night, this is like 10 o'clock at night, they're still lit up on the inside. So as we're driving down the street, we say, whoa, look what's in there. That's men's clothing, women's clothing. It's lit up. And then people say, we got to go in there sometime, even if they're driving down after they're closed. And so see if the Squire shop and the women's did that with LED lighting, we go, whoa, look at that. And these shops actually look better at night because their curb appeal isn't that great either. But just by putting LED lights in there, they said by the way, this women's shop said when we lit up our windows, our sales went up almost 25%. Because people saw it at night when they're going home or driving into town. They said, we got to go there tomorrow during the day. 25% increase. All these were taken like at 10:30 at night in a small town in Durant, Oklahoma. You know, and so you can even do the rooftops, you know, like that. And those are all LED lights. I'd love to see that here. Would be awesome. It could even go down the side streets. you know, and so those are things you can do. And then finally, the blade signs. The only way I see these signs if I go out and stand in the middle of the traffic, you know, because it's extending out. And so you need blade signs. And so if like this, why should I walk down the street? I have no idea what's down there. There's no perpendicular signs to us. So, and the same right here. I mean, why would I walk down the street? I don't have any clue. So when we're in a car or walking down a side, we see signs that are perpendicular to us. And one thing so let me go and talk about this for a minute. Retail blade signs. They should always promote. So here's one for Amy. Amy, you have SR on it. I have no clue what that is. You know, and so that's the challenge. If you say, and by the way, for skin rehab, we've been trying to figure out, do you do dermatology? We're still not sure what even skin rehab does. So what, do you do facials? What all do you do?
Yeah, so all things skin, so dermatology, aesthetics,
Okay.
facials, but skin exams, medical.
So if you had a blade sign that said skin rehab, and then you just did like a couple of bullet points, your top things that just said, facials, dermatology, cosmetic, whatever it is, and just did that. So you blade sign, and I always say keep it less than 6 words if you can. But even on your blade sign, if it just said dermatology, cosmetic, I'm trying to think of things, that you have, and then you don't even need to put the name of the store on that blade sign, because then when they see it, they'll see skin rehab on your door, which looks really nice. But that's what I would do. But in this case, you can see it says chocolate, collectibles, train, restaurant. It doesn't even tell you the name of the business. It just tells you, here's what we offer. And so that'd be great. I mean, that was in Leavenworth, Washington, right there. And this is in Nantucket, but notice they're consistent for height and size. And so there's Nantucket just from a wider angle. This is Carmel, California. So here's this is Valparaiso, Indiana. So on hill, they could be a little bit bigger because we're going faster and it's a little wider street, but on the side streets, they can be pretty small. These are Canmore, Alberta, another small town. Blade signs are awesome. I love it, like the Kitchen Boutique. And these, by the way, were in Lethbridge, Alberta, and they are built to 100-mile-an-hour wind loads. So you can't, and they were just filling in the blanks when I was there. And so here you go. So no lower than 7 feet, no higher than 9 feet, no wider than 42 inches. That way you have some consistency. Would be great. And always promote what it is you're selling. And if you did awning, you can't have a big tall sign because the awning, it needs to hang under the awning. So the sign might be 6 inches from top to bottom. And so, we even have a video that you can access that talks all about signage, and Don and Stacy and the Jake's here and just will give you access to that. One thing is for downtown Grafton, I go, why do you have 2-hour parking downtown? Really? I mean, I've never seen downtown where it was hard to find parking. And maybe at one time, a long time ago, I'm not too sure. But I also say 2-hour parking is a good way to kill a downtown. And when we say, well, we can't get our employees to park somewhere else, we're going to punish our customers instead. What if we come downtown and want to go to a movie? And this does say 8 to 6, but what if I want to come down and have lunch and go to a matinee? Or what if I want to come down and go into the Squire shop, the women's shop, and into skin rehab? I mean, people will spend more time. And if you get the armory going, which is what I'm going to close with, then you're going to create an active place where people can come and hang out for hours. So I think 2-hour parking is a crime against downtowns. And I say that everywhere. This is not just Grafton. And so after seeing all those pictures of beautification, you can see why we said it was so bleak looking. Just no curb appeal at all. And I feel bad for the merchants. This is what they're leasing or renting. Even the Strand, there's no benches there. I could see it had new movies into it. And yet when we went to see a movie, we drove all the way down to East Grand Forks. And then I came back, I think Jacob was saying, man, they've really done, it's really a great theater. We didn't know it looking at it. That is how people judge you. I thought La Cantina looked good. I put narrow the menu because they're trying to be all things to all people. We had Mexican food there, and I'm really sorry. I'll say it to this small group. It wasn't very good. And people said, well, their burgers are much better than their Mexican food. And maybe it was the day we were there or whatever. I mean, our meal was like soup. And it was interesting. But I just thought, man, narrow your focus. So now I want to talk about the Armory. And Don, you gave me the plans, the rough plans for the Armory and everything. And here's some ideas. These are just suggestions. So there's the Armory. You can see that red square there. We think all that outdoors should be a plaza because you can park on the other side up there. I don't know if it's public or private. I mean, there's parking everywhere. And I thought you need a place for a central gathering place. So what if that was public parking that just showed up on your screen? And so we saw the Armory and we thought this could be a really cool asset for the city. It could be a gathering place. And I love the fact that you've got plenty of indoor space so that in the middle of the winter, people can go in there and just walk around it. What happens is where people hang out, retail follows. So the best thing you could do to help downtown retail is get people down there consistently. And so I thought, okay, you see that kind of that orange right there? What if that was all paver stones? You know, the little brick pavers. Pavers, I love pavers because the water can perk down below them. I've actually seen towns where they'll actually put thin wiring underneath that's low voltage that will melt snow. But if that was all paver stones, and then, you know, and I even thought these buildings right back there, I don't know what's in them, if anything. I thought, what if that was the restaurant that would open up onto the plaza? The Armory would open up plaza. What if that little building, I don't know what's in it. What if that little building to the right had public restrooms in it or offices for whoever's managing the Armory and the plaza? And so these are just rough ideas just to get you started. But I kept going, man, this could be so cool. And on the north side, you'd have plenty of parking. I don't know what's in those retail, but now we get people even in front of those shops if there are any shops there. We go into towns all the time and tell them to do something like this. Well, you already have the Armory. In this case, it has garage doors all the way around that open up in the summer and you close them in the winter. But in the Armory, we think it should be all flex space. So it could be a public market. It could be a farmer's market. It could be a Christmas market. It could be a Christmas tree forest. It could be a haunted house. It could be, you could do job fairs in there. You could do home shows in there. You could do health fairs in there. And then your merchants and stuff could go in there and do whatever. So this is all flexible space. And so this is what we showed for that space, not your space. But you can see all those booths. In this case, it's got a bunch of tables and chairs around the center stage, and it would be like a public market or an arts market. And in some cases, public markets can work year round. And there it is when you clear all that out. We still have a couple of permanent vendors in there. So you could get hot chocolate or coffee, but the rest of the space is all flex space that you can do whatever you want. And we even have videos of how to do this. But if you did this plaza, the primary ingredient is programming. It's a place for people in Grafton to come hang out in the middle of your commercial retail district. We want the businesses downtown to succeed because when they succeed, the value of the building goes up and that's tax base. The retail sales goes up and that's tax base. I've never understood why people in Pembina go right past Grafton all the way down to Grand Forks. They don't stop here. I think you're already underserved in many areas. And so I just thought, well, if we could do this, it would be really cool. And I'd say every town should have a community living room. This would be it. So indoors and outdoors, you've got flexible space. And so it would just be so cool to do. And what you would do is, this is called Imagination Playground that you see right there. It should change every couple of weeks. You don't want it to be static. And I'm going to show you what you could do. So you might have, so if it's for 2 weeks at a time, that's 26 changes. But you can do, like, you could put Imagination Playground out there during spring break for 2 weeks. even though spring break's only 1 week, that's fine. But then you could also put out 2 weeks in the summer. See what I mean? So kind of 13 changes. You would do these changes twice a year. You could do these big chess sets like this. Here they use parking spaces to do it. In your case, I don't think you need to do that. Jenga blocks, they're $79 for one of those on Amazon. You buy 6 of them. And then at the end of the day, you have volunteers come in, they'll restack them. But can you imagine even that outdoor plaza there if you had tables and chairs and some lighting strung across? I mean, it would just slow traffic down to a crawl. People would notice what you have in your downtown rather than just blowing through downtown. And so, I mean, can you imagine doing that this time of year? Last night it was beautiful. It was chilly, but if you did these and you had in Caldwell, Idaho, they have 14 propane fire pits. And I'm going to show you what it costs to do this. I always say when we invite guests to our home, we may offer table games. We have a barbecue in the backyard. All that kind of stuff should happen in downtown. And so can you imagine having this and you might even on a wall, you might broadcast a movie, or something happening. You can do chili cook-offs. You can bring in magicians, musicians. It gives you cultural depth. And so change it up every couple of weeks, 13 different sets. And I'm going to show you, consider weather and seasons. You can mix and match activities. You could add security cameras, get volunteers to assist, keep it well lit with like string lights. But look at this. Here's a table and 4 chairs for $162. If you add an umbrella, we're still under $200. And it doesn't mean the city or parks department has to go buy all this. You could say, we want a law firm is going to sponsor these. And you put out a sandwich board, or a school district might sponsor, or the city might sponsor a couple of sets. And so I thought, well, what could you do? You could even line your plaza with these to keep cars out of there. Terrorists now have a deal where they like driving into crowds. So if you just if you took the plaza and ringed it with these, you would create this safe space. And so we've got all kinds of, and I always say you should have activities 250 days a year downtown. Because for Amy's business, she needs people downtown consistently, not just 10 days a year. See what I mean? And so if you can get people downtown consistently, then your retailers are going to be super happy and they're going to do really well. And so here's samples. Look at this. You can do these 4 to score giant game sets. They're $200 each. You can buy 6 of them. So there'd be, and Jenga blocks doing Jenga sets. Total investment would be $1,200. Somebody could sponsor that set. But these are all, and I'm not going to go through all of these in detail, but 4 mega chess sets are like $750 a piece. You could put those out there sometimes. And you might have combination of these things. But these are all things. If you go downtown New York City, there's ping pong tables and foosball tables everywhere, even in the winter in New York City. And so this is always about people. Can you imagine having the hula hoops? That whole thing is $950. So these could all be sponsored and you'll have people down there. These are sponge chairs. I think those are really cool and people love those things. And so these are just all musical instruments. The musical instruments could be permanently mounted down there. And so these are all examples of things. You can even get some of these little vendor tents. And then if there's a local that makes jewelry or home-based businesses, which there's a lot of, they can say, well, we even have you don't have to go out and buy the tent. We'll give it to you. And you can generate revenue. You say we get 10% of your sales because we have to manage it and we're putting them up and you're getting to use our tent and it's on an honor system. There's all kinds of things. This is a portable skate park. So you can imagine all these things, cornhole tosses. I mean, I'll just keep going through here. There's your fire pits, and even badminton. I just think all these things. In Canmore, Alberta, they have this exercise equipment. It's out there in the middle of the winter. People wearing all their ski gear out there exercising. And so it's just a great way to bring your community together. This, if there's Imagination Playground. And by the way, Imagination Playground comes with these big bins. At the end of the day, you just put all of the, it's like Lincoln Logs for anybody that remembers, but Lincoln Logs, but made out of foam. and it's education for kids. It's fun for kids. And so if you were to go buy all of this stuff that I showed you, everything, all of it, four cornhole sets, 8 fire pits, 3 badminton. If you went and bought all of this stuff, 50 umbrellas, 200 chairs, all of this stuff would cost $76,000. But it doesn't mean, oh, the city has to buy it, or it could be, a lot of this could be sponsored. You know, maybe Marvin would sponsor $10,000 worth of this. And we put out, and then you would add sandwich boards or plaques that just say, you know, the plaza brought to you by Marvin. You could even sell naming rights to it. It could be, you know, Marvin or Marvin Plaza, you know, I mean, and then that would help you put the pavers down if budget is an issue, you know, and so these are all things that I think you could do. So here we are. There's the Armory up at the top. And there's the lot that I think would be a fantastic plaza. And I don't know who owns these, what's in them or anything. But I thought if we did this, there's our paver stone. So now we put down a nice paver base. Yes, we'd probably take out those little street trees right there. They're about the only ones living downtown right now. But I would take that out. So it's all a flat open space. You can program however you want. What's that?
There's trees at the chamber.
Oh, is there trees over there? Okay. And I know there's a few, yeah. Where that purple thing is might be a stage, and it could be a portable stage. It could be a permanent stage, you know, but then what we would do, I put a little fence there, that little purple line, so you can get back behind the stage where they would set up gear and everything. So you'd have electrical there. And then we might do another fence back here, and then that would be a gate in the back. So you could stage events back there, and that's your access into the plaza. Then we could say, okay, let's add street trees. I added two trees right there at the back. We could add a row of trees right here. And then you can put those planters underneath the trees. We could even add a row of trees right there along Highway 81 Hill and do that. You might have a restaurant right here. I don't know. I don't know what's in those. And then those yellow things you see are Catalina umbrellas. So under each one of those is a table and 4 chairs. So if you had a restaurant, people could sit out there on the plaza in these chairs. And maybe you do some right outside the Armory. Maybe they're selling food in the Armory somewhere, you know, when you have pop-up businesses and everything. So we give people seating right there. And you may say those little white squares now are vendor booths. And so you say, yeah, let's have a couple of vendors there. And we might even have a farmer's market there. And so, and we can look at this. We have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 vendors in there in this configuration. And it still leaves room for a couple of foosball tables, a couple of chess sets, whatever you wanted to do. And you know, and so I just think this could be a really awesome thing that wouldn't be overly expensive to do. You know, and so you might have, and I would call the Armory a public market, Grafton's public market. And that public market could be, and by the way, I would make sure that what I tell people with plazas can never be privately held for private events. It's a public gathering space, just like a park. You know, so you say, I want to have a wedding at Listicle Park. You say, well, we're going to kick out everybody using the park for a private event. So the plaza, you might be able to do it in the Armory, you know, where you're having a banquet or something, but the plaza should always be open to everybody. And if somebody wants to host an event there, it still needs to be open to the public. But you could put beer gardens, you could do whatever. And I should show you if you ever get a chance, go to Rapid City. Go to Rapid City and go look at Main Street Square. But even if you did an ice rink, remember it said 250 days for the activity? If you could afford it, I'd do a splash pad there. And a splash pad could run 120 days a year. The ice rink could run 120 days. You just did 240 days worth of activity. And this ice rink is all portable, so you can take it out. These little purple things are benches. I did this in like 5 minutes. The little yellow squares are fire pits with benches around them on 3 sides. And then you got still a few tables and chairs there. But can you imagine? I mean, it'd be an amazing gathering place. And in this little building where you have storage, you can even rent ice skates. So I got to tell you, in Rapid City, South Dakota, which is a much bigger city, I mean, it's the size of Grand Forks. But in Rapid City, they make $130,000 a year just renting ice skates. They have to dole them out because it gets too busy. And their ice rink is about the size of Rockefeller Center, which is about that size. So that's what you could do. I think it's fantastic. And I know you have other ice in other areas. We want to put activities downtown, you know, and so I think that would be awesome. You could have a couple vendors there too. You know, and so the big deal about plazas, it's where we go after work on weekends. The primary hours for plazas are 4 to 9. So where do we go? Remember when I showed the list of what millennials want? And it says life after 6, you just created it. You just created life after 6. Now, doesn't mean the plaza doesn't open till 4. Its activity hours are basically from 11 till 9 o'clock at night, so that we can get people in the retail during the day. So that we're here for lunch traffic, and then we're here after that. And I just think if there was anything that you ever did in Grafton, that's what I would do. And I don't know the logistics. I don't know who owns those other buildings. I don't even know who owns the parking lot. But I'm just trying to get you the idea of creating a community living room. It is the number one thing. I got to tell you, in Rapid City, South Dakota, had an aging population. Within 24 months, I think it was 20 months, within 20 months of when they opened Main Street Square, the average age of a person buying a home dropped 12 years. I'll never forget when they were building it, and it was a parking lot. It was exactly like that parking lot. And next to it was a Sears building. And that Sears building is full of restaurants now. But in Main Street Square, I'll never forget going there, and they had this like 4x8 sheet of plywood showing what it was going to look like when it was done. And I remember being at a restaurant across the street watching, and this mom walked by with her stroller and like a little 4 or 5-year-old girl. Walking by, they stopped in front of that piece of plywood, and they were looking at it. She was showing her the splash pad and the pictures and everything. And all of a sudden I saw this little girl going like this. And I cried, because that's what this is about. It's about your people. It's about giving them a place that they cherish, that they can come and hang out. And I'm telling you, that splash pad, it's only like 1,500 square feet. It's not much. It's about the size of this room. So way less than 1,500 square feet. It's about a couple of hundred square feet, about the size of this room. Now that costs them $300,000 to do, because splash pads are underground. So there is a little cost to that, but there are even grants for that. But if you could do a splash pad there, and you, by the way, you can shut off the splash pad. You can shut off the splash pad and then put vendor markets and everything, because it's flush. And I just think doing a splash pad, a portable ice rink, you know, you do have to have a place to store a Zamboni. That's what I liked about those buildings being there. You know, it might be a place where you could store a Zamboni during the winter months to get in there and do that. So anyway, these are just, and even if you didn't do that, it's just a place for people to go hang out. And I just think, and you need to do it. I even went to Bill over at Grafton Parks and said, you know, you had the hay bale maze over there. What if the hay bale maze was downtown and a couple of food trucks, but out there was the corn maze? So you have 2 different locations that you could bring people, you know, and whether Parks Department runs it, or generally, here's who runs these. Here's who runs these. And let me, usually you will create a downtown association. It might be a business improvement district. So you create an association. In the case, let me tell you Rapid City, because it's the example we use for everybody. In the case of Rapid City, they lease it out to Destination Rapid City. They created a 501c3 for downtown. And they do have a business improvement district downtown where they generate a little bit of money. So let me tell you Rapid City. And remember, this is a much bigger city, so you can cut this by 90%. Rapid City has 4 full-time people that run their plaza. 1 person does the logistics, setting things up, taking things down. And then they have part-time help that get there at night to set everything back up and, you know, put things away, those kinds of things. They have 1 person does the logistics, 1 person does community outreach to let them know what's changing when it's changing. Another person does all the accounting, and I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. And then the fourth person is the manager of it. You know, it just takes care of everybody else. In the case of Rapid City, it costs them $500,000 a year to run the plaza. So for you, it might be $50,000 a year. But let me tell you where they get their money. In the case of Rapid City, the city gives them $50,000 a year. For you, it might be $5,000 a year coming from the city. They get $50,000 from their business improvement. Here, it might be $5,000. So just, I want you to keep thinking like 10% of that. And then they make $130,000 a year renting ice skates. So in your case, you still might make that because they have to dole them out. It's the same size you could put out there. So they make $130,000 doing ice skates. They make $120,000 a year beer garden sales. They work with the local restaurant, and they will actually do beer gardens during car club and other events. So they make money there. They also get 10% of vendors that come on there, like farmers markets, and it's just 10%. So if they don't do a lot of sales, it doesn't hurt them. And they make $150,000 a year doing that. Then they make $150,000 a year on sponsorships. You know, this month it's sponsored by Marvin Windows. This month it's sponsored by an ag company. So when they have sponsorships, they generate $700,000 a year. So they're stocking money away to do improvements. So for you, it might be 10% of that. And I just think that it is the number one thing I do. I'm the biggest proponent of plazas in the United States, and we've done them in towns, lots of towns of 1,000 people or more. So here you have 5,000 people. I think it should be a number one priority to improve the quality of life for people. And what's nice when you have it downtown, it's an investment, not an expense. All your other parks and ball fields are an expense, and they're good. I'm not taking those away. But when you put it downtown, you're actually increasing the value of your buildings, and that's property tax revenues. And you're increasing your retail sales, that's sales tax revenues. So by putting some activities in the heart of your downtown, you're doing two things. You're increasing your tax base, you're improving the quality of life, and you're creating a community living room. The reason we're doing this meeting today, and Don and I talked about this yesterday coming back out, we would love Grafton to be the case history that could show the rest of the state of North Dakota how to create a real sense of community. We'd love to have you do this. There's one caveat. We have not run into a place in North Dakota that wasn't really fiscally conservative, meaning, do we really, really want to build another thing that's going to take money out of somewhere else, and we have to manage it, and by the way, I would always say the city should lease this. It could be to the chamber. It could create a downtown association. You could create just maybe there's another nonprofit here you could put it under, because I don't think the city wants to run beer gardens and get 10%. I mean, the city's not into this accounting thing. So we always lease it out to a nonprofit for $1 a year, falls under the city's umbrella insurance. And in their agreement, it says you will keep this busy at least 200 days a year with activity, not events, activity. Like the splash pad, 120 days a year, ice rink, 120 days. There's 240 or 250 days. But just having chess sets out there for 2 weeks, that's activity. So it doesn't mean 250 days worth of events. We just want things to do there 250 days a year. That's what retailers need to be successful. And I guarantee you that sales at the Squire shop, at the Wynn shop, at Amy's shop, at all there's other shops, the restaurants, everything would just skyrocket. In Rapid City, they went from 30% vacancies in their downtown to 0 and a waiting list. And so I just thought, man, if there's ever a city that could do this, and I'd love Grafton to be the hub of all of Pembina County, and so that they're coming to Grafton, not going past you to get down to Grand Forks. And granted, Grand Forks has those super Target and, all that big stuff, and they're going to do that sometimes. But for their basic needs, we'd rather have them come to Grafton. We'd rather have your service area include all of Pembina County. And then the other, Park River and all the other cities in Walsh County, wouldn't it be great if this is their central gathering place? Last thing on this was just talking about marketing. This will only take a minute. We do want the Rendezvous region do an RVer's guide that would show us where we can buy all this stuff locally. And you could do one just for Grafton. And maybe the Parks Department takes the lead on. And by the way, all these people will be featured in the brochure, but they each pay to be in the brochure. So it's a self-funding thing. Because I know Tractor Supply sells RV things. We know that Simonson, did I get that right? Sells propane. We know that Hugo's is right here. You've got Cenex, you've got a couple of gas stations where you can buy diesel. All of these things, so you might do an RV's guide to beautiful Rendezvous region. I would do an RV's guide in the case of Grafton for Grafton. And it's self-funding. And then marketing the Rendezvous region, I've showed this before, that I think you should do pick your season, pick your passion. This, when you see a picture like that, it says, oh, they're open year round. And so you might say winter, spring, summer, and fall, and then you can put the months. See, September to May, then June, July, and August. Just kidding. Just kidding. So it could be, November, December, like this. So we think and this would be more Rendezvous region, but you would have a website that says we're open year round. And if somebody clicks on the winner, it would take them to a page and now pick your passion. You want to know ice fishing, snowboarding, downhill skiing, holiday happenings, fat tire bike, snowmobile, festivals, events. You click on whatever it is you want to know about, and then it would take you to another page. So if somebody did ice fishing, we might have more, and I just made up some stuff here, but we'd show a picture of it, and then they could click for more information for ice fishing or for whatever the activity is. And I think that would be really important. And then finally, this is my last thing. We do have a survey out there, right there. It's bit.ly./weigh-in now, and it is case sensitive, weigh in now. And we want people to take this questionnaire. So we want you to publicize it to everybody. And it'll ask you where you live. And we don't mind having Fargo and Minnesota weigh in on what they think of the area, because we can separate them out from what you think. And it'll ask you, what do you think our 3 greatest assets are? What do you think our 3 greatest challenges are? If there's one thing we could do in Grafton to make it better for you, what would it be? So it asks questions like that. It's kind of open-ended. And that'll help us when we develop this plan. But I really feel that Grafton could be the case history and be the standard bearer for all 4 of these counties outside of Grand Forks. So, because that's very urban, but in the suburban, the smaller communities, you could really set that and be the case history for the entire state, because they need it in Minot and Bismarck. And I mean, those places have drab downtowns too. I've been in them. We've worked in Williston, Dickinson, and all those places. And so anyway, amazing people don't just happen. And one thing that we would love is tourism, downtowns, chambers, economic development. All these businesses represent the private sector, all these organizations. I really believe you need to create a destination Grafton team. And what it would be these people like these, I'm not sure you have, it might be Marvin Windows. We have some young people there. Schools should be there. We probably, and I always say 13 people. I don't have that many people there. I think Parks Department should probably be there, but I think you need to create the destination Grafton team that gets the chamber, people that represent tourism, people that represent downtown, working together. And I think that's absolutely critical. And you might meet once a month and say, okay, Roger did all these suggestions. What should we do with them? Which ones can we do? And there's no reason, these are suggestions, up to you to turn them into recommendations. But we're hoping somebody somewhere will do a plaza and really set standard. And with the arm, when you showed me the armory, I went back and I went, oh my God, here's a gold mine. And we came back downtown and filmed it. I walked it and I went, this could be really cool. I mean, it could be so cool. And so I call this the typical economic development express. Economic development meets, they do their thing. The chamber meets, they do their thing. Tourism meets, they do their thing. Everybody's doing their own thing. But when you get together with that team, you go from this to this. That's the color of money. And for me, everything is about how do you monetize it? How do you monetize everything? and that's why I think there should be a focus on downtown. I think the only weak link in Grafton, the only weak link was the appeal of downtown. It wasn't the business mix at all. It was the appeal. It just doesn't slow traffic down. And that's all I got.